The 6 Thinking Hats is a mindset training model, or a model for thinking holistically, developed by British scholar Dr. Edward D. Bono. It provides tools for parallel thinking to avoid wasting time arguing with each other. It emphasizes what can be rather than what is, and seeks a way forward rather than arguing about who is right and who is wrong. Utilizing D. Bono's 6 Thinking Hats will make chaotic thinking clearer, turn meaningless arguments in a group into brainstorming creations, and make everyone creative. Dr. Edward de Bono is known as the creator of the 20th century's paradigm shift in the way people think, and is a world-recognized authority in the field of creative thinking and mindset training, and is revered as the father of creative thinking. He was born in Malta in 1933. He received a PhD in psychology and medicine from Oxford University and a Doctor of Medicine from Cambridge University. He has worked at Oxford University, the University of London, Harvard University, and the University of Cambridge. Dr. Edward D. Bono is an international authority in the field of mind training, having established the study of creative thinking on a scientific basis for the first time. The European Association for Innovation has named him one of the 250 most significant contributors to human history. He has had a wide impact on the world of business. D. Bono is the founder of the theory of lateral thinking. The word lateral thinking is part of a language that has been included in the Oxford English Dictionary and the Longman Dictionary. D. Bono is the author of 68 books, including I'm Right, You're Wrong, which was recommended by 3 Nobel Prize winners, and chaired the Nobel Prize Winners' Conference in Seoul, Korea, in 1990. The name D. Bono has become a symbol of creativity and new thinking. D. Bono has published 62 books, and his masterpieces 6 Thinking Hats and Thinking Horizontally have been translated into 37 languages and marketed in 54 countries, where they have been widely promoted and recognized in the corporate, educational, and political sectors. D. Bono thinking has long been recognized as the most effective training tool for innovative thinking as a guide to decision-making in government, business, and personal life, and the International Thinking Conference awarded D. Bono the title of Pioneer for his outstanding contributions to human thinking. The 6 Thinking Hats are 6 different colored hats that represent 6 different modes of thinking. Anyone is capable of using the following 6 basic modes of thinking. White thinking hat. The color white is neutral and objective. When wearing a white thinking cap, people think in terms of focusing on objective facts and figures. Green thinking hat. The color green represents grass and symbolizes vitality. The green hat symbolizes creativity and imagination. It has the functions of creative thinking, brainstorming, and divergent thinking. Yellow thinking cap. The color yellow represents value and certainty. Wearing a yellow thinking cap, people think positively and express optimistic, hopeful, and constructive views. Black thinking cap. Wearing a black thinking cap allows people to use negativity, skepticism, doubt, and logic to criticize, express negative opinions, and find errors in logic. Red thinking cap. Red is the color of emotion. Wearing a red thinking cap allows one to express one's emotions. One can also express intuition, feelings, premonitions, etc. Blue thinking cap. The blue thinking cap is responsible for controlling and regulating the thinking process. It is responsible for controlling the order in which the hats are used, for planning and managing the thinking process, and for drawing conclusions. The way to use the 6 thinking hats is to identify which thinking hat to use when facing a problem or situation, and then focus on the role and thinking style represented by that thinking hat in order to think more comprehensively and deeply about the problem and ultimately arrive at a better solution. The 6 thinking hats have been widely used in education, business, and other fields to help people think and make decisions more effectively and to improve their ability to think and be creative. The 6 thinking hats are a parallel thinking tool, a creative thinking tool, an operational framework for interpersonal communication, and an effective way to improve team IQ. 6 Thinking Hats is a simple, proven thinking tool that gives people enthusiasm, courage, and creativity, so that every meeting, every discussion, every report, every decision is full of new ideas and vitality. This tool helps people develop constructive ideas, Listen to other people's perspectives. Think about the same problem from different perspectives to create high-performance solutions. Replace critical and vertical thinking with parallel thinking. Enhance team members' ability to brainstorm and provide operational tools for harmonization and integration. White hat, objective and neutral. When you use a calculator, you enter numbers and equations, and the calculator will quickly come up with an answer. The answer from the calculator is neutral and objective, without any subjective thoughts. With the advancement of technology, computers have more and more functions, but what remains unchanged is that computers have emotions, and they only utilize the built-in system to calculate and display the answers in a step-by-step manner. When we use a computer, we expect it to give us the right answer directly without arguing or discussing with it in the middle of the process. When we utilize the white hat, we need to focus directly on the information. What information we have. What information we need. What information we lack. What information do we need to have? What information do we need to get? The white hat applies at the beginning of our thinking because it gives us some information about what is going on, gives us some understanding of what is going on, and gives us a better basis for our thinking. White hats are also useful at the end of the process because they allow us to assess whether our goals are consistent with the information available to us. Or at least not in the opposite direction. White hat is all about neutrality and objectivity, and aims to present the world objectively. Here are some examples. Example 1. Witness. I said he came home at 6:30 a.m. because he had been gambling all night. Mr. Jones, did you actually see the defendant gambling on the night of June 30th? Or did he ever tell you that he was gambling at that time? No, Mr. Counselor, but he gambles almost every night. Then all you have to do is say, I saw him come home at 6:30 in the morning. The attorney encouraged the witness to express the sighting in terms of the white hat. White hats are important in the courtroom because lawyers for both the prosecution and the defense often like to use their own perceptions and analysis to guide the jury's thinking. At this point, the judge must make a distinction, so that the jury only accepts the white hat issued objective facts, in order to make the most impartial judgment. Example 2. Mr. Fetzler, turkey sales in the U.S. increased by 25% last year because of increased health consciousness, and turkey meat is thought to contain fewer calories. White hat, Mr. Fetzler, if you're wearing a white hat, all you have to say is, turkey sales in the U.S. increased by 25% last year. The rest is just your interpretation of the increase in sales. Mr. Fetzler, but there really are studies that show that the reason some people buy turkey is because they think it has lower cholesterol. Okay, so you have two facts. 1. Turkey sales in the US increased by 25% last year. 2. Market research shows that some people claim to buy turkey meat because of cholesterol concerns. From the above two examples, we can see that white hats are obsessed with facts. The white hats demand that everything we say be based on facts, and they don't even allow us to arbitrarily link two facts together. For example, linking the fact that turkey sales went up last year to the fact that some people buy turkeys because they're thinking about cholesterol, because that doesn't necessarily correlate. If we link them together, it becomes what we think. Another example is that if we put ice cream sales and drowning deaths on the same table, we would analyze the following result: the more ice cream you eat, the higher the chance of drowning. Of course, normal people will not think in this direction because we know two facts, i.e., there is no direct correlation between the sales of ice cream and the number of drowning deaths, and this table ignores an important element, i.e., the climate. When the weather is hot, people are more likely to participate in water sports, which naturally leads to a higher chance of drowning. When the weather is hot, the sales volume of ice cream will naturally be higher. In this way, we will understand that there may be other factors, such as improvement in the quality of the product, changes in the weather, and so on. When we put on our white hats, we will learn to collect and present facts without adding personal analysis. In the book Six Thinking Hats, Bono mentions a very interesting example. Westerners have the habit of arguing. When we attend a meeting, participants usually like to present their own views and opinions on things, and as a result, we often end up arguing because of our different positions. On the other side of the globe, however, the Japanese have a very different way of holding meetings. The Japanese usually collect different information before the meeting, but they usually do not have a set position before the meeting. During the meeting, people will take turns to report the information they have found. Since they do not have any predetermined position, what they report is just information without any personal views. As a result, when everyone expresses their information clearly, they will get more and more information, and gradually they will come up with an answer. To summarize, white hat represents neutrality and objectivity. Participants should make use of white hat to absorb different information in a neutral manner. After receiving the information, participants should not add their own analysis lightly, because the most important function of the white hat is to construct a good background for thinking, and leave the analysis to other hats. Red hat, intuition and emotion. Contrary to the white hat, the red hat pursues personal feelings, emotions, and intuition. In the process of expression, participants are free to share what they are feeling at the time, without having to make any corrections or explanations, and just go with the flow. In particular, the purpose of the red hat is to allow people to tell the truth about how they feel, not to jump to conclusions. When a participant wears a red hat, he can no longer say "I don't know" because he just needs to say what he thinks. Simply put, the red hat has the following characteristics. The exact opposite of the neutrality and objectivity of the white hat. The red hat relies on our hunches, our intuition and our feelings. There is no need to present proof. There is no need to give reasons and justifications. Here are some examples of what we say when we put on the red hat. I just don't like this deal, it's disgusting. I just don't like this deal, it disgusts me. I don't like this man and I don't want to do business with him, that's how I feel about it. I have a feeling that the land behind the church will fetch a good price. I have a hunch that the land behind the church will fetch a good price, it's a whimsical design, it's not going to work, it's just going to be a waste of money. I know Henry is a bit of a cynic and he's fooled us before, but when he does something, he does it cleanly, and that's what fascinates me, and that's why I like him. I don't think it's going to work out, and it's going to end up in a lawsuit for us. I don't think there's a chance of winning in this situation. I don't see how we can win in this situation. It's a lose-lose situation, so let's just give up. I think it is unfair to conceal this information before signing the contract. From the above examples, members will realize that these are all our personal feelings and thoughts, and we have not presented any evidence to support them in the course of our presentation. This is very different from the white hat, which requires us to speak the truth and tell only what is true, without adding our personal feelings, while the red hat is the complete opposite. One of the things that the red hat emphasizes is our emotions. Traditionally, many people think that emotions disturb our thinking. An outstanding leader needs to be very calm, to be free from all emotions, because he thinks about the interests of the matter and not about the needs of the emotions. However, this is not quite true. Any good decision will ultimately come from emotions, because when we make decisions, our emotions and values play a big role, which also affects the direction of our team. In short, emotions are part of our thinking, not an interference in the thinking process. Besides emotions, intuition is also an important part of the red hat. Intuition can be divided into two parts. The first part refers to sudden insight, that is, you already have a feeling about something, but suddenly you have a whim to have another perception, which results in a different feeling. This kind of intuition can often inspire us to be creative. For example, if we shift our attention from the winners to the losers in a race with 131 participants, you will find that in addition to one winner, there are 130 losers. When we have this intuition, our creative thinking will be broader because we are not only focusing on the winner, but also the other losers. Another intuition is the immediate understanding of a situation. This intuition is a judgment based on our past experience and is not supported by any rationale. For example, if we are playing a game of red ball or black ball in a casino, we may see that the red ball has appeared several times in a row, and we expect that the next ball will probably be the black ball. Unfortunately, the roulette wheel does not have the ability to memorize, and the chances of the red ball and the black ball coming out next time are the same. Of course, intuition is also useful, as long as the correct result we get from our intuition has a higher chance than the wrong result. For some managers, having this kind of intuition is very important, and it is also the most valuable thing about them. Their intuition can tell them what business is worth doing and what is not. When a new product is launched, no one has a crystal ball and can predict how it will sell. Managers will be able to deduce the sales of a new product due to past experience and the sales of similar products. Speaking of which, some of you may ask, if the red hats are partly based on our intuition, and some people's intuition may not be very accurate, will the red hats not be very useful to them? Of course not. At the beginning of this chapter, we mentioned that the main function of the 6 hats is to allow us to role play and analyze the situation from different perspectives, so that we can come up with a more comprehensive result. The white hats allow us to present facts and figures neutrally and objectively, while the red hats allow us to present our emotions, intuition, and thoughts subjectively, and these thoughts and feelings are not right or wrong. In a meeting, when everyone takes turns to put on the red hats, we all know that we are all expressing our views on the matter, and that this may touch a little bit of our personal feelings, but we all know that this is because of the red hats. When the meeting is over, everyone takes off their red hats and the relationship will not be affected by the attitudes and opinions expressed just now. Black hat, prudence and caution. Of the 6 hats, the black hat is the one we use the most. It emphasizes prudence and caution, so that we can always be on our guard and not do anything illegal, dangerous, or harmful to ourselves or others. The black hat is a logical way of thinking that is based on some of the world's agreed upon strategies. For example, we know that seeing lions and tigers in the wild is dangerous because they may attack us. We know that it's dangerous to see lions and tigers in the wild because they might attack us. We know that we should not pick wild mushrooms in the countryside because they might be poisonous. These concepts are deeply rooted in our minds. When we encounter something in our lives that is different from these conventions, the black hat reminds us to stay away from danger. The theories put forward by the black hat must be correct and stand up in any situation. Honestly, the world is a big place, and there are a lot of things we haven't seen. The black hat is more negative and biased, considering the negative aspects of things, judging and evaluating. Whenever something looks different from what we know, the black hat will warn us. If we put too much emphasis on believing in the black hat, we will easily be counterproductive, overly cautious and conservative, failing to break through our own thinking and affecting our ability to innovate. After putting on the black hat, we often ask, is it real? Will it work? What are its shortcomings? What are the problems with it? What is wrong with it? Why can it not work? Because the black hat is a powerful check, we can use it to find flaws, evidence, logic, possibilities, implications, applicability, and shortcomings. Simply put, we can utilize the black hat in the following situations. 1. When we need to decide whether or not to adopt an idea and consider the risks involved. 2. When we have an idea in our head and we are not sure whether or not to adopt it. 3. When an idea is developing in our minds and in our teams. However, as a book to encourage innovation, I must emphasize that we should not abuse the black hat, because innovation is to create something new, which will naturally give rise to a lot of questions and negative ideas. Black hat, if we rely too much on the black hat, will kill a lot of potential creativity. If we rely too much on the black hats, we will kill a lot of potential creativity. We need to understand that it is often easier to criticize than to build, and we can easily find different angles to criticize others, but let's not forget the original intention. We use the 6 hats thinking method because we want to make things better, rather than using the black hats to suppress any innovative ideas. For example, designing a chair is not a simple task. It takes a designer many days of thought and research, but when we see the chair, it may take less than 5 minutes to come up with an infinite number of flaws in the chair. If the design of this chair is simple, you may say that this chair is too simple, there is no design to speak of. If the design of this chair with a little bit of modernity, you may say that this chair is too commonplace. From this example, we realize that different people have different ideas, and no single idea can satisfy everyone at the same time. As innovators, sometimes even when we put on our black hats, we have to remind ourselves, if this idea is already about perfect, and there are only a few flaws left, we might as well ignore them. Black hats, when used alone, tend to be abusive and counterproductive. Black hats, when used in conjunction with other color hats, can serve their purpose of keeping us on our toes, allowing us to make safer and more stable decisions. Yellow hat, positive and constructive. The yellow hat brings a positive, optimistic, positive, and constructive way of thinking that helps us to realize our plans to the best of our ability, and thus reap the benefits. Benefits are also important in using the yellow hat because we don't want to do something positively that will end up being bad for us. In using the yellow hat, we have to ask ourselves the following questions. What is the value of this scheme? Who does it have value for? How is the value realized? Is there any other value? When we think about it and realize that the answers to the above questions are all positive, we can start working on it in a focused and positive way. For innovators, the yellow hat is very important because innovation is creating something that doesn't exist now, or improving something that does exist now, and in any case going further than the present. The future is always uncertain, and the yellow hat allows us to move forward without fear of difficulty until we reach our goal. Conceptually, the yellow hat and the black hat are opposites. The black hat favors negativity and risk management, while the yellow hat favors positivity and courage to try. Too much negativity and risk aversion can hinder innovation, but too much optimism and self-confidence can also put us at risk. The normal spectrum of thinking for a yellow hat is the spectrum between what is logically practical and what is extremely optimistic. Simply put, when we put on the yellow hat, what we want to do should be better than what we are doing now, or else the yellow hat will not serve its purpose of leading us in a positive direction. But at the same time, I cannot be over-optimistic, because that is unrealistic. We have to remind ourselves that we cannot be extremely optimistic when we are wearing the yellow hat. For example, we cannot always expect ourselves to win the lotto jackpot every time, nor can we expect ourselves to be the leader in every industry. The above two examples of optimistic thinking are unrealistic and basically impossible to achieve, and if we have these thoughts frequently, they will only make us live in a fantasy world. More importantly, our ability to take action must be translated into execution. If our positive thinking remains at the idea stage, i.e. expectation, with no other real action, then such optimism is blind. But when we think positively about something, no matter how difficult it may be to fulfill our expectations, as long as we work hard towards our goals, we may be surprised by the results. The green thinking hat. Now we come to the most important hat for creativity, the green thinking cap. When we put on our green thinking hat, we will arrange a variety of possibilities and make corrections and improvements. Possibilities is very important to the green thinking cap because it opens up our mind to consider all possible options. Of course, it is impossible for us to deal with too many options at the same time, so the green thinking cap can be used in conjunction with other hats to analyze and make decisions for us. For example, when we put on the black hat earlier, it pointed out some shortcomings and potential problems of the proposal, and the green hat can provide improvement solutions to solve those problems into more feasible solutions. Sometimes when we are faced with too many options, we can use the red hat to find the most feasible option from a subjective point of view and deepen the process. The green hat emphasizes new perspectives and ideas. After putting on the green hat, we have to put aside our old concepts and let ourselves think. For example, if we have been thinking about a problem for a long time, but we still can't get to the bottom of it, we can't help but think, is it possible that our original method is not feasible? Are there any other new and innovative methods that we can try other than the one we have in front of us? Congratulations, we have already put on our green hats and thought about it. Time is also a key point of the green hat. In the 6 hats thinking method, each hat represents the direction of our thinking. For example, when we put on the white hat, it means that we think objectively and neutrally, and when we put on the black hat, it means that we think cautiously. When we wear a green hat, it means that we have to be open-minded and inspire our creativity. Some people say, "I'm not creative by nature, so I shouldn't be able to wear the green hat, right?" Of course not, everyone can be creative, the problem is just a matter of time. Therefore, when we put on the green hat, we must give ourselves a certain amount of time to think about it, and we should not always think that we are not creative and then give up. In the first step of utilizing creativity, we can first make some wild ideas, and sometimes these ideas can look like a joke. It doesn't matter, because these seemingly useless ideas are actually inspiring our thinking. Then, with the help of the other hats, we have to find a more feasible solution and deepen it into a final solution. We need to be very careful when using the green hats, because a nascent idea needs the most protection. As mentioned above, at first some ideas seem to be out of the blue. If we analyze them with the help of other hats, such as the red hat, we are likely to come up with the conclusion that this solution will not work. If we also put on the black hat, we will be able to analyze the situation. If we also put on the black hat, we will think, there are too many flaws in this proposal, and it's very risky. The foundation of a nascent idea is relatively weak, and we need to use the green hat to deepen and study it over time. If we have already analyzed these ideas with other hats when they first appeared, it will kill many feasible creative developments. In addition, utilizing the green hat is very difficult for many of us because of the inertia of the human brain. We tend to be inert in our thinking. It's as if we have a set formula in our heads. When we think about problems, if we don't pay attention, we will easily get into the habitual thinking and reject some new ways of thinking. Of course, it is also because new methods may fail. Due to inertia and fear of trouble, it is easy for us to reject new ways of thinking and resort to existing methods. At this point, we need to tell ourselves, I know that new methods may fail, but I need to try them because I'm wearing a green hat. The 6 hats approach is a way of inspiring us to think in a different direction, but it doesn't have the power to influence the quality of our thinking. To be clear, the green hats don't make you creative all of a sudden, they just remind you that you need to think creatively at the right time. As mentioned above, the green hat buys us some time to concentrate on our creativity, but how many ideas we can come up with still depends on our creativity. Of course, creativity can be cultivated through hard work. As Mr. N.I. Hung, a famous science fiction writer in Hong Kong, has said, if you intend to be a fiction writer, you cannot wait for inspiration to come before you start writing. Sometimes, even if you are not in the mood, you have to sit down and find something to write about, for example, the scenery outside the street. These things may not have much to do with the content of the novel, but they can open up our minds during the writing process, and soon we will have more inspiration. The green hat allows us to come up with new ideas, not all of which are perfect or desirable, but we must remember that it takes time to use the green hat. When a new idea arises, we should not immediately make a judgment or set a tone on it, but rather postpone the judgment so that we have more time to strengthen the new idea. When we finally realize that the new idea doesn't work well, we don't have to be discouraged. This is because in the process of thinking, just like a farmer sowing seeds in a field, we will always come up with new ideas that work as long as we keep working on them. Of course, even if a new idea is not feasible, we can still use it as a stepping stone to continuously refine our ideas and eventually come up with a new idea that is feasible. Remember, a building is built from the ground up, and a horse is not built in a day. As long as we are willing to spend some time to put on our green hats and analyze problems, our creativity will surely be enhanced. Since nascent ideas are fragile and need to be cultivated, once we put on the green hat, we need to be more attentive to the new ideas in our heads, otherwise they will easily be influenced by other hats. The author of 6 Thinking Hats puts forward the concept of PO, which is like the white flag in a war. When one of the parties in a war raises the white flag, it means that he has already surrendered and admitted defeat, and then the other party should stop attacking the other party. After we put on our green hats, we remind ourselves that we need PO in our thinking, that this is a time for innovation, that we need wild ideas, and that hats of other colors are temporarily in a state of truce. At this point, even if we come up with ideas that seem unrealistic, we won't be repressed, and here are some examples. PO, is it possible to have octagonal wheels in the world? PO, is it possible to get wet in the rain without an umbrella? PO, is it possible to drive a car on the sea? If I ask you for your first impression of these ideas, they are all unrealistic. The wheels of a car should be round. If they are octagonal, it will make the car very unstable. If you think like this, please stop thinking like this, because if you analyze this new idea with your current knowledge, you have obviously used other hats to influence the green hat, and you have to remember that it is PO time. Without the influence of the other hats, we could have used our time and creativity to continue to deepen and refine the idea, which would probably have been enough to turn it into a reality. Take the wheels as an example. Tanks and some engineering vehicles are equipped with wheel tracks or precisely long stripes. Breaking the wheel must be rounded shape, and the advantage of this kind of wheel tracks is precisely to make the vehicle more stable, able to drive on the uneven terrain. As for the rain, if you do not want to use your hands to play the umbrella, then think about combining the umbrella and the hat, using lighter materials to make umbrellas, set on the hat. When it rains, all you need to do is put on the hat, just like an umbrella. Finally, the car itself is a tool for driving on land. Even if some cars have waterproof function, running in the water will not be bad, but the shape and structure of the car will not let the car float on the water. Therefore, in order to drive on the sea, it is necessary to change the shape of the car, such as adding some elements owned by the boat, and thus the dual-use vehicle was invented. From the above examples, we realize that a wild idea doesn't mean it's bound to fail. The question is whether we have enough determination and patience to study the details. What makes human beings better than other animals is that we know how to think. From walking naked in the forest thousands of years ago, human beings have developed to wearing beautiful clothes, using cars for transportation, and living in high-rise buildings, making countless breakthroughs in the course of human history. On the other hand, the development of other creatures on Earth is not so remarkable. The cats of this year do not look so different from those of thousands of years ago. This shows that breakthrough innovation is very important to human beings. PO allows us to come up with more out-of-the-box ideas, and we can think without being driven, which is a very important process in innovation. As mentioned before, we have inertia thinking. If there is a direct method in front of us, people will not think about other methods, which limits our thinking. Blue thinking hat. Now we explore the blue thinking cap. Imagine that you are watching an orchestra perform, and a maestro wearing a suit and holding a baton in his hand is the conductor of the orchestra. Whenever he waves his baton, more than 100 musicians play different tunes following the gestures of the maestro. Although more than 100 instruments sound at the same time, they all follow the gestures of the maestro, which gives us a very harmonious and consistent feeling. The conductor is definitely the soul of the orchestra. Without the conductor, the whole orchestra would be like a piece of loose sand and would never be able to play a pleasant song. The blue thinking cap is like the conductor of the orchestra. When we wear the blue cap, we should stand higher than the other members as the conductor to direct the members to use the different colors of the cap in the order and time. The blue hat is to get to the heart of the problem, to find out the goal of the thinking, in order to find out the results of the thinking. Blue hats are often seen in team leadership. When thinking, he can act as a facilitator, assigning everyone to think with what color thinking hats. After everyone has been using a certain color for a while, he or she can decide to change to another color. The blue thinking cap is like a policeman, maintaining the order of the thinking, thus increasing the effectiveness of the team's thinking. When the team is finished, the blue thinking cap acts as a summary of the results and consensus reached during the thinking process. When there is no consensus on an issue, the blue thinking hat can decide whether the discussion should continue. Further, The blue hat is superior to the other colored hats because its focus is not on thinking about the answers to the questions being discussed, but rather on the methods of management thinking, which is the color hat that management members are using. The blue hat helps us develop the process and progress of our thinking. You may ask, why do we need a blue hat to direct our thinking process? Wouldn't it be simpler if we just started our thinking with someone telling us what color hat we are going to use? Of course not, because in our thinking process, our thinking goal is not very clear, and we are easily influenced by some noise and information, which makes our thinking goal become blurred. At this time, the blue hat is just for us to clarify the criteria, focus and flow of our thinking, like the conductor of an orchestra, leading us to think in the same direction. Another important function of the blue hat is to focus our thinking. In the course of discussion, it is very easy for us to think farther and farther away from the topic. The blue hat serves as an inspector, constantly reminding us to focus our thoughts on the topic to increase efficiency. Of course, in the course of thinking, if some members wear the wrong color hat, the blue hat must also remind them. When we wear the blue hat, we should stand higher than other members. Our function is to ensure that the team's thinking is smooth. The blue hat acts as an observer. We listen to the voices of the different members and therefore we can act as a generalizer and summarizer. Although it has been mentioned above that the blue hat seems to be taken up by one person, in fact, the blue hat can be taken up by different people. As long as he can perform the function of a moderator, he is wearing a blue hat. It can be said that the presiding officer of a meeting is designated to wear the blue hat, but other people can also play the relevant roles. To summarize, the blue hat is like the conductor of the team's thinking, allowing the thinking process to have a clearer goal and flow, and also serving as a summary, an indispensable element of the thinking process. In this chapter, we share with you the 6-hat thinking method, which has the following main functions. 1. Reminds us that when we think about a problem, we can use different thinking directions to think about it, and when we wear color hats representing different thinking directions, we can come up with ideas that will be different, so that our thinking will be more comprehensive and detailed. 2. The 6 thinking hats allow us to use the different thinking methods represented by the different colored hats to guide us to express our own ideas in many ways. In team discussions, if we can use the color hats to assign members to think in the same way, we will be able to think in the same way, and we can speak more freely and with less worry. By wearing different color hats, we are acting like we are participating in a role play, and we are already acting in that way of thinking. For example, if we are Superman in a role play, we are acting in the role of Superman's righteousness in dealing with the monsters. For example, if we were to be Superman in a role play, we would be taking on the role of Superman and dealing with the monster. For example, if we were to be a person who thinks in a more logical way, we would be thinking in a more logical way, but if we were to put on the red hat, we would be thinking in a less logical way, and would be including more emotion. 3. The 6 thinking hats can make team members more harmonious. When wearing different colored hats, we need to think in a way that corresponds to the color of the hat, but this way of thinking is not necessarily the way we are used to thinking, which is like adding a disclaimer for us. For example, as the black hat emphasizes logic, sometimes when we hear other members say something illogical, we have to point it out. However, since we all know that I am wearing a black hat, we need to point out what I have observed, so even if our opinions are conflicting, we will not hurt each other. The 6 hats approach plays a very important role in both individual and team thinking processes, and innovation is an important part of the thinking direction, represented by the green hat. However, it takes time to get used to the idea that there are 6 different ways of thinking about an issue, and it does take time to explore and adapt. It does take time to explore and get used to, but it's definitely worth it to think in a more holistic way. The 6 thinking hats, drive Bono's research in the field of innovative thinking, has been widely recognized by academics and the public since its publication. American businessman Peter Uber wrote, who made a huge profit of $150 million from his first solo Olympic Games in 1984, attributed his extraordinary achievement to the new concepts and ideas generated by the horizontal thinking method, and attended a 6 thinking hats training course organized by Drive Bono. The 1996 U.S. Federal Law Conference invited de Bono to teach the 6 thinking hats to an audience of more than 2,300 senior attorneys, judges, and celebrities from 52 federal and invited countries. The U.S. military has also recognized the value of de Bono's 6 thinking hats as an innovative thinking tool. Admiral KV Admiral asked him to serve as a consultant for hot political negotiations around the world. 20 generals met at Rhode Island in Newport and invited de Bono to participate in discussing the results of the YZK using the creative thinking tools, and he was the only ordinary citizen and foreigner attending the meeting. Even the White House is promoting de Bono's horizontal thinking approach. The New York branch of the United Nations Center for International Innovation has invited de Bono to train its staff in the 6 Hats program in hopes of stimulating new thinking and ideas. The biggest misunderstanding of the 6 hats is that they are only divided into 6 different colors. The key to applying the 6 hats lies in the way the user arranges the order of the hats, that is, organizing the flow of thinking. Only after mastering how to organize the thinking process, can we say that we have really mastered the method of applying the 6 thinking hats, otherwise it will often make people feel that this tool is not practical. Hat order of the preparation of books alone is difficult to achieve the desired results. Hat order is very important. We can imagine that when a person writes an article, he needs to plan his own structural outline in advance, so that he will not write in a chaotic way. A programmer needs to design the entire program module flow before compiling a large section of the program, and the same is true for thinking. The 6 thinking hats not only define the different types of thinking, but also define the impact of the flow structure of thinking on the outcome of thinking. The 6 thinking hats are generally thought of as a tool for teamwork, but in fact they can be of great value to individuals as well. When a person is considering a project, there are 2 situations he is most reluctant to face: a blank space in his mind where he doesn't know where to start, and a cluttered mind where too many ideas are intertwined and clogged up. The 6 thinking hats can help him design an outline of his thoughts and think them through in a certain order. In terms of practicing this thinking tool, it makes most people feel clearer and more agile. In the team application, the biggest application situation is the meeting. Here especially refers to the discussion of the meeting, because this kind of meeting is the real thinking and viewpoints of the collision docking platform, and we are difficult to reach agreement in this kind of meeting. Often not because of some external skills are not enough, but fundamentally do not agree with the views of others caused by. The 6 thinking hats have become a particularly effective framework for communication. All people should be guided by the blue hats to think and speak according to the framework of the system. Not only can effectively avoid conflict, but also on a topic can be discussed more fully and thoroughly. The 6 thinking hats can be used in meetings not only to compress meeting time, but also to enhance the depth of discussion. The 6 thinking hats can also be used as a framework for written communication, for managing email, for organizing reports and file reviews, and so on. In addition to applying the 6 thinking hats to work and study, the 6 thinking hats are often used to great effect in family life. In most teams, team members are forced to accept the team's established way of thinking, which limits the degree of cooperation between individuals and the team, and prevents them from solving certain problems effectively. By utilizing the 6 thinking hats model, team members are no longer limited to a single mode of thinking. The thinking hats represent role categorization, a kind of thinking requirement, rather than a representation of the actor himself. The 6 thinking hats represent 6 thinking roles, covering almost the entire process of thinking, which can effectively support individual behavior as well as mutual stimulation in group discussions. Application process. The following is a typical step-by-step process for applying the 6 thinking hats in a meeting. 1. State the problem, white hat. 2. Propose a solution to the problem, green hat. 3. Assess the advantages of the program, yellow hat. 4. Listing the shortcomings of the program, black hat. 5. The solution to the intuitive judgment, red hat. 6. Summarize the statement, make a decision, blue hat. Practical application. Green hat and blue hat is the opposite way, because the green thinking cap is very free and active, and can be a wild goose chase. The blue thinking cap is designed to control and guide the direction of the thinking process. Green thinking hat. Think grass, trees, vegetables, and growth. Think active growth and harvest. Think germination and branching out. A green hat is an active hat. Green hats are for creative thinking. In fact, the green hat contains the meaning of the word creative itself. 1. Creative thinking means to bring something about or to give birth to something, which is similar to constructive thinking. Green hats are concerned with suggestions and recommendations. 2. Creative thinking means new ideas, new options, new solutions, new inventions. The emphasis here is on new. The white hat lists information. The red hat allows us to express feelings. The black hat and the yellow hat deal with logical judgment. Therefore, it is the turn of the green hat to get down to the nitty-gritty, and wearing the green hat means making a proposal. When you are asked to wear the green hat, you make suggestions and come up with ideas. This is proactive thinking, not just reacting to things. Unlike the yellow and black thinkers, the green thinker does not have to provide logical justification for his or her suggestions or ideas, it is enough to present the idea for further examination. The 5 main uses of the green hat are listed below. Examining. The white hat examines a situation using available information. The green hat examines the situation in terms of ideas, concepts, suggestions, and possibilities. Making suggestions. The green hat is used to make any kind of suggestions and recommendations. They do not have to be new ideas. They can be suggestions for action, solutions to problems, possible decisions. Wearing a green hat allows for all kinds of positive and active thinking. When no one knows what to do, it's time to put on your green hat and think. Look for alternatives. If an explanation has been given or a course of action has been discussed, then ask people to put on their green hats and look for further explanations and alternatives. What other explanations might there be? What else could be done? The green hat is intended to broaden the range of options available to us before action is taken. Evaluating these options is the task of the yellow and black hats. Come up with new ideas. Sometimes we need to be completely creative. When the old ways don't work, or there are no viable solutions to a problem, it's time to engage in the kind of truly creative or horizontal thinking that the green hat basically plays. If you ask someone to think green about something, then you are asking them to go beyond the boundaries of what they have already done and come up with new ideas. You can't ask someone to be creative, but you can at least ask them to try. The horizontal thinking techniques described later in this book should be used consciously to generate new ideas. Stimulate. With our green hats on, we can come up with all sorts of experimental ideas, even if we don't know if they will work. We can also consciously come up with stimuli, which don't necessarily have to be useful ideas, but are just there to help us get out of the box and look at things in a different way. Stimulus techniques are described later in this book. Action and energization. Action and energy are the hallmarks of the green thinking cap. When a painter stands in front of a blank canvas, the most important thing he can do is to start moving. This action may be sketching a picture or putting some paint on the canvas. When there is a blank is the need for the idea of the time. The blank situation requires green thinking cap. Conformity or stagnation of the situation also requires green thinking cap. Blue thinking cap. Imagine a blue sky. The sky is high above. If you fly in the sky, you can look down on everything. Wearing a blue hat means going beyond the thinking process. You are looking down on the whole thinking process. The blue hat is a reflection on thinking. The blue hat means reviewing the review and summary of the thinking process. It controls the thinking process. The blue hat is like the conductor of an orchestra. With the other 5 hats, we think about things in themselves, but with the blue hat, we think about thinking. The wearer of the blue hat withdraws from the thinking process in order to monitor and observe it. 1. Where are we now? Where are we now? What is the focus of the problem? What more do we need to do? These questions are intended to clarify what we are thinking about doing at this moment in time. Are we wandering aimlessly, or are we trying to do something? 2. What's next? What should we do next, in our thinking process? Blue thinking hat people may suggest switching to a different hat to think, or to summarize, or to clarify the focus of the thinking. Suggestions for guidance are necessary when people seem unsure of what to do next. Everyone may have a different opinion about what to do next, and then a decision needs to be made. If everyone has a clear idea of what to do next, then go straight to the next step. 3. Thinking programs. In addition to determining what to do next, the blue hat can be used to program the entire thinking process, i.e., to schedule or sequence the different thinking steps. This is usually done at the beginning of a meeting, but can be done at any time. Thinking programs can cover the entire meeting process, or they can be used for just one item or part of an item. In some cases, the thinking program consists of a sequence of 6 thinking hats. The blue hat is intended to be a formal approach to thinking. Just as a computer programmer programs a computer, the blue hat programs the thinking process. 4. Summarize. At any point in the thinking process, participants can put on the blue hat and ask for a summary. Where are we now? How far have we come? Can we summarize? This summary may give a sense of accomplishment, or it may show that the thinking so far has been fruitless. It can also help to clarify different points of view. 5. Observe and comment. Blue thinking hat people are beyond the thinking process and look down on what is happening. Therefore, the blue thinking cap is responsible for observing and commenting. It looks like we've been arguing about the goals of the meeting so far. We were supposed to consider several options, but now only one has been discussed. A great deal of red thinking caps have been conducted this morning. The function of the blue hat is to make the thinker aware of his or her thinking behavior. Is the thinking behavior effective? 6. Misuse of the blue thinking hat. In practice, many people already use the blue thinking hat, but they don't say so directly. However, it is more effective to state it explicitly. Avoid misuse of the blue hats. It is easy to annoy people by stopping the meeting every few minutes to make a blue hat comment. It is more effective to use it occasionally. As a thinking tool, the 6 thinking hats have been set up by the governments of more than 50 countries, including the United States, Japan, the United Kingdom, and Australia, as a teaching curriculum in the field of school education. It has also been adopted by many of the world's leading business organizations as a universal tool for creating organizational synergy and creativity. These organizations include Microsoft, IBM, Siemens, Nokia, Motorola, Ericsson, Boeing, Panasonic, DuPont, and McDonald's, among others. Example: Siemens in Germany had 370,000 people take Bono's thinking program, and as a result, product development time was reduced by 30%. Channel 4 in the UK says that they have created more new ideas in 2 days than in the last 6 months as a result of the training. Xerox in the UK reported that by using the techniques and tools they learned, they were able to accomplish in less than a day what used to take a week. ABB in Finland spent 30 days discussing international projects. Today, by using parallel thinking, it takes only 2 days. JP Morgan reduced meeting time by 80% and changed their culture in Europe by using 6 thinking caps. McDonald's Japan has had significant results by having their employees participate in 6 thinking hats training. Employees are more passionate, and frank exchanges have reduced the negative effects of black thinking hats. The results have been dramatic. Employees are more enthusiastic, and frank communication reduces the negative effects of black thinking caps. In DuPont's Innovation Center, a special program was created to explore the use of Bono's thinking tools to change the company's culture, and the 6 thinking hats have been used extensively throughout the company. Training in the 6 thinking hats will enable you to master the 6 thinking hats. How to lead more focused, productive meetings. How to find opportunities where most people only find problems. How to look at problems from new and unusual perspectives. How to look at problems from multiple perspectives. How to foster collaborative thinking. How to reduce confrontational and judgmental thinking in interactions. How to adopt a thoughtful approach to solving problems and identifying opportunities. How to create a dynamic, positive environment that engages people. How to solve problems by discovering unnoticed, effective, and innovative solutions. How to implement simple, easy-to-use tools for your company's solutions. Methods for highly focused and productive meetings. How to find opportunities where most people only find problems. How to discover a new angle on a problem to find business opportunities. Skills to break down a problem to its different levels. Developing synergistic thinking skills in teams. Ways to minimize confrontation in communication. How to create dynamic, positive environments for people to participate in. How to effectively increase creativity. Ways to make solutions easy to implement. The ability to execute. Six-hat thinking is revolutionary because it frees us from thinking and helps people to prioritize all of their ideas and find solutions. With the six-hat approach, we can sort out different aspects of our thinking rather than solving all problems at once. We can focus on risk factors, followed by benefits, then feelings, and so on. We can get a person to put on a hat and think a certain way, or take off the hat and end the thinking. The six hats approach allows us to simply and politely encourage the thinker to apply equal energy to each thought process, rather than remaining rigidly fixed in one pattern. Six hats thinking has been adopted by many multinational companies around the world. More than 1.5 million people have successfully completed the Six Hats workshop in 55 countries around the world. Role and value. 1. It is a constructive, designing, and innovative thinking management tool, as opposed to a critical, debating and oppositional approach. 2. It enables the thinker to overcome emotional infections, eliminate helplessness and confusion in thinking, get rid of the shackles of habitual thinking, and think in a more efficient way. 3. The visualization of the six-colored hat makes it easy to navigate complex thinking. 4. When you think you can't solve a problem, the six thinking hats will give you a new opportunity. 5. Enables a variety of ideas and perspectives to be organized harmoniously. Avoid confrontation between people. 6. Go through a thoughtful process to find answers. 7. Avoid self-importance and one-sidedness. The six hats represent the six roles of thinking, which cover almost the entire process of thinking and can effectively support both individual behavior and mutual stimulation in group discussions. Users. The six thinking hats have gone through a process of development from theory to curriculum, and can be used in corporate meetings, decision-making, communication, reporting, and even affecting personal life. Many corporations have commented that the implementation of the six thinking hats has improved their corporate culture and greatly enhanced their management effectiveness. Using the six thinking caps to consider the problems in our work will also have an unexpected effect. The white thinking cap is used to think and collect information from each section, collect the problems of each department and find the basic data. Putting on the green thinking cap and considering these problems with innovative thinking is not a matter of one person thinking, but of managers at all levels thinking creatively and putting forward their own solutions to problems, good suggestions, and good measures. Perhaps these methods may not be correct or even impossible to implement. However, to think creatively is to think out of the ordinary mode of thinking. Next, put on the yellow thinking cap and the black thinking cap and analyze all the ideas from the bright side and the benign side one by one. Analyze all the ideas from the bright side and benign side one by one, and analyze the dangers and pitfalls of each idea to find out the best fit. The two ways of thinking, the yellow thinking cap and the black thinking cap, are like Mencius' theory of the goodness of nature and the badness of nature, both of which can be rejected or affirmed. At this point, then put on the red thinking cap, from the experience, intuition, on the filtered issues for analysis, screening, and make a decision. In the process of thinking, you should also use the blue thinking cap at any time to adjust and control the order of thinking, and sometimes even to break. The reason is that the point of view may be correct, or it may lead to a dead end. Therefore, in the entire thinking process, you should always change your thinking cap to analyze and discuss from different perspectives. The 6 thinking hats represent 6 different ways of thinking that complement each other to achieve the best results. However, the following points need to be noted when using this method of thinking. 1. Be clear about the characteristics and functions of each hat. For example, the green hat represents creativity. 2. Each time we think, we can only wear one color hat, and after wearing it, we can only use the way of thinking of this hat to think, otherwise, we will not be able to adapt to it. For example, when we wear the green hat, we will produce a lot of nascent creative ideas. These new ideas need to be tolerant, so that they can grow healthily. However, black hats and red hats may automatically kill these nascent creative ideas. 3. There is no order or time limit for putting on the hats. Some ways of thinking require less time, for example intuitive red hats, while others require longer thinking time, for example green innovative hats. 4. There is no limit to the number of times you can wear the hat, and you can use it interchangeably. 5. Each time you finish using the hat, take it off before putting on another hat, not at the same time. 6. Repeat the lifting of the hat at the end. 6. Finally, I would like to repeat that the 6 hats represent 6 different directions of thinking, and that we should maintain a clear mindset and not integrate the 6 ways of thinking together. The use of the 6 hats also requires some attention and skills. The following are some suggestions. 1. Choose the right thinking hat. When using the 6 thinking hats, it is necessary to choose the right thinking hat according to the nature and needs of the problem or situation. Different thinking hats have different roles and functions and should be chosen according to the actual situation. 2. Do not overuse a particular thinking hat. In using the 6 thinking hats, there is a need to avoid overutilizing a particular thinking hat, which may affect the comprehensiveness and objectivity of the thinking hat. There is a need to maintain a balanced and diversified way of thinking. 3. Be aware of the need to switch between thinking hats. When using the 6 thinking hats, there is a need to be aware of the transition between thinking hats. It is important to know when to switch hats in order to better handle problems and challenges. 4. Adaptation and flexibility. When using the 6 thinking hats, they need to be adapted and applied flexibly in order to realize their full value and potential. Different problems and situations require different ways of thinking, which need to be adapted and applied according to the actual situation. Of course, there are some limitations and challenges in using the 6 thinking caps. For example, in some cases, the use of the 6 thinking hats may lead to oversimplification or overcategorization of problems, thereby ignoring the complexity and diversity of the problems. In addition, some people may find the use of 6 thinking hats too rigid to truly reflect their unique thinking style and creativity. Therefore, the use of the 6 thinking hats needs to be adapted and flexibly applied in practice. The use of 6 thinking hats can help people to think and make decisions more effectively, but it is not an all-purpose solution. In practice, we need to consider other factors such as personal values, experience, and knowledge background. Therefore, the 6 thinking hats should be used as a useful tool and method rather than the only solution. It needs to be adapted and flexibly applied to meet the actual needs of individuals and teams. Using the 6 thinking hats requires continuous learning and practice, as well as constant reflection and improvement. As time passes and experience accumulates, our thinking and decision-making skills will continue to improve and develop. Therefore, using the 6 thinking hats is not only a thinking tool, but also a way of thinking and an attitude towards life. In the process of using the 6 thinking hats, we need to practice and develop our thinking skills, so that we can better apply the 6 thinking hats to improve our problem-solving ability and creativity. At the same time, we need to constantly reflect and improve on our thinking and decision-making, learn from each experience, and improve our thinking and attitude towards life. Using the 6 thinking hats requires continuous learning and practice, as well as constant reflection and improvement. This is the only way to fully realize the value and potential of the 6 thinking hats, to improve your thinking and creativity, and to find the best solutions. In short, the 6 thinking hats are a valuable tool to help people think and make decisions more effectively. It not only helps us to better understand problems and challenges, but also promotes teamwork and communication. The use of the 6 thinking hats needs to be appropriately adapted and applied flexibly in order to realize its full value and potential.